failing was not an option for me. Failing meant I had to go back to banking. And that's the way I looked at it. I never felt at home in banking, but that's a different story.
From Oddbox CEO to brand builder, meet Deepak, turning quirky veg into fresh deliveries and helping others grow their brands.
A lot of us do have fear of failure, right? It was because you were scared of failing, you wanted to do something differently, and then that's how Oddbox was born.
Yeah.
So I think also, we're scared with this fear of failing.
Yeah.
It's that fear that also pushes you to do something different.
100%. One of the key drivers, and it's still my kind of, if you were to call me what's my purpose? My purpose is to shift behaviors and change mindsets and leave a positive impact in people's lives. And that's kind of the thread that's been, driving me all along.
I'm so glad you started this business. You are a household name in the UK, but then you just mentioned you have stepped down.
Yes.
When everything is going right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What happened there?
Deepak, we live in a society where our looks matter a lot. And that's why there's a huge industry behind it as well. Your cosmetic industry and so on. It's quite interesting for me that it also matters when you look at food. So vegetables, for example.
Right.
Why does it matter so much?
I suppose, as humans, we are perhaps primed to look at a perfect way of living, perhaps. And that could be, skin without blemishes, or, car without dents, or, or people who look perfect, like you think about the models and actors and actresses and things like that. So I think we perhaps apply the same logic to food that we eat. If you think about all the craze about Instagram and curating perfect looking food and things like that. So I think we maybe look at what is grown naturally, i.e. fruits and vegetables, in the same kind of lens and say, it should be perfect looking. And if you walk into a supermarket today, even today, you have aisles upon aisle of perfect looking vegetables packed in plastic, all looking perfectly alike, red and perfect color and things like that. So I think there's a sense of the perception that we have as humans, and we apply that to everything that we have, and also what the market offers and what you get. So I think it's a kind of a cycle where we see perfect, so we want more perfect. And therefore supermarkets would argue that if I were to charge the same amount of money and place a perfect looking veg next to an ugly looking veg, 9 times out of 10, people will pick up the perfect looking veg because they want to get the best for their money.
Wow.
Yeah.
You spoke about Instagram. So it makes logical sense because we like everything to look pretty. When the food is completed, when the dish is made, and then it's presented in a way that looks appealing or appetizing to eat, that would make sense. But the raw material, it's also interesting. This is just raw material.
Right.
Anyway, it's going to break, and then a final product is going to be. It's also, so even the raw material looking good also matters.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. You know the thing that you said in the supermarkets. So is there stats backing that as well?
I mean, we no specific stats, but at the early days of Oddbox, we started speaking to supermarket buyers, just general conversation. We didn't have any kind of major plan at that point in time, and we asked the buyer, why don't you sell this? Supermarkets were creating the waste at the farm, and so we were asking the supermarket buyer, why don't you sell Wonky veg, as you used to call it? And the supermarket buyer said this exact same thing, that people would choose perfect vegetables over imperfect vegetables simply because if they see a small blight on the carrot, they're like, but why should I'm paying the same, whatever, 30p per kilo, whatever that is. Why should I pick the one with a blight on it? I'm going to pick the perfect looking thing. And I think I think we apply the same thing with the clothes we choose, for the toys we buy, the food that we eat. I think it's just the way we've been conditioned, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah.
But we're going to start a little bit way back.
Yeah.
So you're an immigrant in the UK.
Yes, I am.
Give me a little bit more about that. Where are you from and when did you move here?
Yeah, so I'm originally from India. So I grew up 30 years of my life in India, in a city called Bangalore, which is in the south part of India. IT capital for people.
Yeah.
They call it the Silicon Valley of India. And I moved to the UK in 2009, mainly because the UK has always been what I would say my dream destination. And that was because I grew up supporting the English football team for all my sins, and I'm still kind of waiting for them to win something.
I thought you would say Bollywood. Because I think for me, I don't watch football, but for me, it was because of Bollywood. Because every time some actor, actress moved out of India, they came to London.
Of course.
Somehow.
Yeah. Obviously, right? Yeah. No, it's not that actually. I grew up. So music is a big part of my life. So I grew up listening to brands like Led Zeppelin, Queen, and other bands that The Who, for instance, which were for me the association of the UK and these bands was quite strong, and I liked the whole kind of. This is probably quite funny, but the one program I used to love watching, TV program I used to love watching when I was in India was Top Gear.
No way.
Right.
Oh, me too.
Silly program, grown-up men behaving like children. But what I really liked when I was watching Top Gear was this iconic kind of gray skies in the background. I was just this seriously, on TV, it looks amazing, right? In TV, it looks
That is
amazing.
funny, by the way.
It is, right? I mean, only when you land here, you realize, oh my God, these don't disappear, do they? I just thought they shoot it like this. They make it look so amazing. There's nothing quite like looking at a red Ferrari, really amazing country lanes. It's just amazing. So I had this very idealistic kind of view of looking at, this is amazing. It's so idyllic. It's streams and rolling fields and things like that. So the UK was my dream destination, which kind of brought me to the UK. I had a choice between the US and the UK, and I chose the UK.
When I was deciding on a destination as well, so I actually went to New York first, because I did come back and forth London. Had some friends here, but yeah, I mean, immediately for me it was like, okay, so as soon as I arrived in London with that mindset, I'm like, okay, I've arrived. And it was like a no-brainer. And then I just did whatever it took. Okay, how soon can I move to the UK? So what was your move then? Like were you actively looking for a job in the UK? Like, I mean, you already had that as a plan, or something just came by?
So in India, I was working for an IT services company, and the IT services company had banking clients in the UK. So I came with a job. And then my wife joined me 3 months later. She didn't have a job. She came and looked for a job. So I came with a job. So I was quite fortunate in the sense that I didn't have to come and look for a job. I already had a job, had a tier 1 visa, which I acquired just a year before coming to the UK. So I was quite clear in the vision that I had and kind of settling down in the UK as a plan. Yeah.
And you came to the UK, you came by yourself, your wife followed.
Yeah.
Walk me through the nuances of I mean, was there a cultural shift or?
Right, massively so. So my job was at Canary Wharf, and I didn't know anything about London at that point in time, right? But when I landed, I've got this taxi cab, jump on a black cab. I'm like, that's iconic black cab, right? And he says, "Oi, Gov, where do you want to go today?" And I was like, I'm here, right? This is great. I tell him, I want to go to this place. And he goes, "You sure, Gov?" And he has Cockney accent. I said, "Where do you want to go?" And I've researched this place. It's an amazing place I want to go to, right? It's called West Ham. And I go, "Are you sure? I wouldn't, the way he said that was, I wouldn't go there." And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. It's called West Ham Football Club. And David Beckham lived here. Alfred Hitchcock lived here." Anyway, go to this place. It's this kind of really council house, which I paid £400 a month, which is the cheapest I could find near Canary Wharf, right next to the train station. There's nothing else apart from this really kind of small shop right next to the train station. Saturday morning, you go there, buy a pint of milk, and you have these, drug addicts and, gentle time wasters just milling about. And, it's like, and then you walk back home. There's a couple of yobs, as in, I don't know, yobs were kind of just boys, thrown around the other side, and they would just call, "Oi, Gandhi, do you have some facts for us?" Like, is that what? And I smoked there, and I was like, is that racism? I didn't know what it was. Or it's like, yeah, I'll just share a frag with them, just have a chat with them and stuff like that. So for me, I was still living in this kind of utopian view of Britain. This is Britain, this is amazing, like, it's got all this history behind it and stuff like that. So for me, initially, I was focused on the positive side of Britain. It was what I didn't expect was I landed in May 2009. I expected it to be warmer. It was bloody cold, as they say in this country. So it was quite chilly. But that aside, I joined a banking job. And although investment banking was amazing, glorified and all that, I joined a job which was essentially one time a month. So once a month, you would have this job. It was essentially a banking transactional move, so it's migration as they call it, which had to be done off banking hours. So it was a job where I'd have to start my day on Thursday morning and end my day Monday night.
Oh, wow.
So I wouldn't go back home. And they used to book us a hotel, but you literally kind of go to the hotel about 2 o'clock in the morning and then come back at 5 o'clock. And you kind of work on this very sporadic time. Let me tell you, walking in Canary Wharf in December, 2 a.m. in the morning, it is one of the most, I suppose, painful things you have to go through. You just have no greenery in sight.
Yeah.
All this kind of, my view of Britain and the kind of rolling fields and all of that is gone. Got this big skyscrapers, big buildings, wind blowing through them, and you're walking at 2 a.m. zombie-like, walking from your office to your hotel, and you're kind of getting 3 hours of sleep. And I'm like, this is not the life I envisaged when I come to the UK. Nevertheless, I did that for 6 months. I survived for 6 months, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So I quit that. I joined like a proper bank, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and then I kind of just went on with that. Yeah.
And for people listening, was it that easy? I mean, because it sounds that, okay, so this was not working, and you got another job, but then you're on a tier 1 visa.
Correct.
Does the new company then give you the visa? Like weren't you worried because, oh my God, I don't want to quit this because then I can't go back, or you had that worked out already?
Yeah, the visa allows you to work with any business, which is the great thing about the visa. But
so you're not linked to that particular business. Gotcha. Okay,
which is quite handy. The thing with finding a job, you're finding a job in for the first time in a new country, and that's always scary. That's always, you don't have a network. You sort of start from scratch. You attend interviews. You don't know what to say. What's the right thing to say. You've done interviews probably. Had done interviews in India, but it's not the same as here. The way you articulate your points is quite different. And mind you, I didn't have a lot of banking experience as well at that point in time. So it was just the job that I'd done. So, but as you always kind of, I think for me, what I've noticed is that when you have an idea in your head and you have this, I wouldn't call it relentless vision, but there's this clarity in your vision. You come across people that then lift you up, right? So I came across my first mentor. He's still a good friend today, Pete. And he was the first one who saw something in me, right? And this is the thing with people that you come across. People see something in you, but you don't see yourself. And that can be mentors. It could be people that come along the way. And he saw something in me, and he hired me for this kind of contract role at BNP Paribas. And the contract role became a permanent role. But then that was my first step. And he took a chance on me, I'd say, rather than me doing something special. And we were good friends. And then he kind of found me jobs in other banks as well. But this is the thing about when you are somehow maybe the darkest moments of your life, or when it's not very clear what you want to do, but the vision of you want to stay in Britain, you want to find a job that is very clear. Maybe people see something in you, and that becomes it's very hard to kind of explain that very tangible way. But that was my first break, if you would call it that. And then it was not easy though, right? Breaking into a bank without prior experience. Most of the recruiters in this country would focus on what prior experience in a very similar role. That's just the way it is. It's very difficult to break that mold. And even today, when I'm an entrepreneur, for me to go back to banking is hard. Because people will ask you, what have you done in the last X number of months? I'm like, yeah, I've done all these things. But that doesn't mean anything. Recruiters will go back to, what have you done in the past few months or years? So I think that was quite hard. The initial work culture of working in this quite a, I wouldn't say like quite a challenging environment, I'd say, because we were supporting outside external clients. And for me, attending these meetings, already there was no trust between the client and us, and just the way it was, the relationship. Then having to prove myself in that kind of role, I had to work. The one thing that I knew that I could fall back on was not my skill set, was not my intelligence or anything like that. It was hard work. That was the one thing I knew I could fall back on. That was the one thing I knew. And it was not about whether other people could catch me or not. I didn't really think about it like that. That was the one thing I knew. When everything else fails, fall back on work, on work ethic. And that was the thing I was doing at the banking thing. My first job was just putting my heart and soul into it, and getting, as my wife calls it now, obsessed. I get OCD about work and the outcome, and creating a good outcome, which is still the case. I'm almost going to have to rein myself back today to balance my life. But I can get extra obsessed about winning and succeeding, and that's everything else falls by the wayside. So that, I think that then brought me into kind of, the confidence in banking. But funnily enough, I never felt at home in banking. But that's a different story. I'll wait for your next question.
You think there's a correlation between your work ethic and you being an immigrant?
I think absolutely, because if you think about, I always think about when I'm in a situation which is not nice, right? I think about two things. One is, what's plan B, right? And what is my plan B at that point in time was going back home to India, right? That was not my plan. I didn't like that plan B. I left India for several reasons. So therefore my plan B, I didn't want to kind of have that plan B in mind. So the only way was to push forward, push ahead. And I didn't have a family here, or a network here, or even friends here. So there's no kind of fallback for me, rather than just pushing ahead, pushing forward. And I was far less self-aware then than I am now. But for me, it's very one-track mind, in terms of I had to make it in this country one way or not, because there's no fallback, no plan B. Yeah.
Do you think also it's interesting you speak about plan B? Do you think when you are more primed to success if you do not have a plan B?
It's knowing what I know now, and with a lot of work, self-work and self-awareness, I think it's two things. One is balance is one. So what that means is that your success or your outcomes are not just work-based, right? It's about having a balanced, your family, your friends, you're giving back your community, being of service to others. So your plan B is not just work plan B. What I mean by that is, if let's say I start a business today and it goes to pot, that's not the end of my identity, and that's not the end of my, you know what, I'm a failure. No, I'm a success because I've got a great relationship with my wife and daughter. I've got a good relationship with my mom and my sister, and I've got good friends. I've got all the other things that I've got So I think it's not just work. So I think for me, the plan B, the way I frame it now is no longer, but there's no plan B. Success is the only way. Success is far more than just work success, I suppose, right now. It's much bigger. Happiness, I suppose, contentment is the long-term goal. And that is call it a moving goalpost, if you will. That is the goal is not to achieve that and then bugger off. Like, the goal is to consistently have that until your death, I suppose.
Deepak, it's interesting. The reason I ask you that question as well is because when I look at work, or when plan A, plan B type of situation, I'm only focusing on success at work. So success in general, I appreciate how you said, like, there's a holistic overview of success, because you spoke about family, you spoke about friends, and so on. But I never thought about approaching work from that holistic perspective as well, if that makes sense. So my thought process around plan A, plan B was, okay, I'm doing X, and if I have a plan B, I'm gonna, take away from all the effort and energy I can put in my plan A.
Yeah.
And, when you're creating a business specifically, you have to be relentless. I mean, you need to put 100% and then some. Yeah. So that was my thought process. However, it's quite interesting, because what you're saying is, okay, but I'm not also just defined by that one absolute thing that I'm doing.
Right.
Hence why, I mean, that plan B is not technically a plan B, but okay, but then my fallback is, I've got my family, I've got my friends, and then I can always restart.
Yeah. I think just to kind of break that down, just for people listening in, is that you have to have a pragmatic view on plan A, plan B for your life, right? So I can't, for instance, say, oh, invest all your savings into this business and then just, whatever, I'm just going to go with the flow. That's not a great plan. You need to have a backup plan, for instance. It's a pragmatic thing. The second layer is purely focusing on work. So the pragmatic financial plan is what I was about to say. The second layer, purely focused on work, success or not, is I think you still need to think about different options and experiments that you do in your work, and say, okay, if that doesn't work, then I'm going to go with something else. And so constantly, the way I think about work success now compared to, say, maybe 10 years ago, is that as long as I'm constantly experimenting, evolving, and learning, the fact that what I'm doing right now is successful or not is probably maybe a setback, maybe a failing, not a failure. I'm almost kind of trying to separate this. I was going through this journey of separating my identity of what that means, of success, failure, versus the practical things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, of a setback, a failing, not a failure, because failure becomes me as a failure, right? I don't want to be, I'm not a failure, but I've failed in several things along the way. That's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. And therefore, that's the thing about plan A, plan B kind of a thing is like, failing is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It's okay to do that, and you've reached that mindset, I suppose, then it doesn't matter, then it's just moving to the next thing, I suppose. That's the way I'm thinking about those things right now. But nevertheless, I'm still relentless. And I think I go back to that point. When you're starting a startup, it's slightly different. And when I started Oddbox 10 years ago, failing was not an option for me. And that's the way I looked at it at the start. This failing, Oddbox as a Oddbox would fail. What happens if 99% of the businesses fail? Blah, blah, blah. All these stats were coming across in my head. And but then for me, failing was not an option, because for me, failing meant I had to go back to banking. So and that was not an option so that's why no plan B, right? So you take the plan B out of the situation, remove the cushion, remove the fallback, remove the plan in your head, not practically these were still available to me, I could have gone back to my banking job, right? You have to go to earn, you got to earn. But in your head, failure was not an option. So that's the way I framed it then. I frame it very differently now, but I've gone through a journey.
It's interesting because a lot of us do have fear of failure, right? And I keep saying this over and over again. I think a lot of people listening are not going to get bored of it, but just for you to have some context as well.
Yeah.
We all celebrate success, but success simply is a byproduct of failure. Only when you fail do you learn. Only when you learn do you grow. Only when you grow do you become successful, right? So, but in this context, it's also very interesting how failure perhaps has been powerful for you. It's because you were scared of failing. You wanted to stick in that banking job because you didn't want to go back to India.
Correct.
And then it was because you were scared of failing, you wanted to do something differently, and then that's how Oddbox was born.
Yeah.
So I think also, we're scared with this fear of failing. But somehow it's that fear that also pushes you to do something different.
100%. I think it's the but I think I always kind of also ask myself now, is it the right thing to do? Is it the right choice, as my daughter asked me? Is it the right choice to be propelled by fear? Or do you have to be propelled by opportunity? Why is it that fear, it's a good thing that fear propels you, and that's fine. And everybody's got fear, right? We've all had fear of several things when you do things the first time, when you're learning and so on. But I'm almost going to tell myself, should I be propelled by fear, or should I be propelled by something else? Naturally, is that where I'm thriving as a human being? And maybe I am. Maybe that's how human beings thrive. I don't know, but
it's something for me to reflect on as well. Obviously, I've got a similar journey like yours. I was not here, then I moved here. I also wanted everything to be a success because I didn't want to go back. So I believe I was also propelled by fear. I was like, oh shit, like this is like, I never want to go back. I want to stay here. I want to solidify my presence and then build a life. And I think maybe it's different. I don't know for you, but over the years, things change because that was also initial stages of Plum. And I was like, oh my God, like this shit, I have to have my shit together. This cannot fail. Like I have to do whatever it takes. Like it cannot fail versus how things are today. Obviously the company is more mature. We have a bigger team and so on. So things have obviously changed, and maybe I'm more excited today, to build a new product and to launch something else. And, like I'm doing this podcast now. So maybe there is excitement. But I think maybe initial days that fear was important for me because if I was not so scared, perhaps I wouldn't push myself so much as well.
Yeah, you're right. And I think I've gone through that as well in my life in several stages. So I've just gonna put that into perspective. I've changed sectors 5 times.
Wow.
And I've worked across 10 companies, right? And each time the transition to a transitionary moment, if you will, has happened, I would say out of frustration that there's something better. And the fear aspect becomes almost at the end of that journey with a certain sector, say. It's the fear is almost like the way I operate on a day-to-day basis. I don't enjoy this. I'm fear. I've got fear driving each of my decisions and so on. I know I'm not in the right place. Almost kind of sometimes the fear almost propels me to think, is that the right place for me? Or is there a better place where I'm operating, with all my heart, with where I'm thriving as a human being, operating out of growth and opportunity and helping others and being of service to others, rather than the fear. So I've made these transitionary jumps every time, which recently I kind of made this jump, stepping out of Oddbox as well. And that didn't come on the back of fear. That came from a very personal view of, I think there's a better life. I don't think Oddbox would benefit from who I am right now in Oddbox, because I was operating with fear. And how do you kind of
do your best? Also,
exactly. How do you delineate this fear which comes and goes when fear propels you forward, but fear can also hold you back? And how do you kind of constantly navigate with, play with fear, but still, or switch your mind to fear's fear. You still go ahead and do and look at things with opportunity and growth and learning and things like that, right? Progress, improvement, things like that, if you know what I mean. So for me, I've got a very strange relationship with fear, I suppose. Propels me forward, but also holds me back.
So, coming back to your banking, you said you didn't feel at home. You didn't feel at home, but you didn't feel at home because things changed from India versus here, or you just wanted to do something by yourself. You didn't want to work for a company anymore. Like what changed?
Yeah. So just to kind of, I think when I grew up, and I grew up as an Indian, from the Indian parents, they always tell you, become an engineer, or a doctor, or an investment banker, right? That's where the money's at. Go for it. That's where the money's at. But buy a house, buy a car. And I kind of did that. I couldn't become an engineer or a doctor, so I became an investment banker, right? Nice, great for your status, great for your ego and all that. And then you buy a house, buy a car. And then what I didn't know was I was earning a lot of money. I would go off on these kind of lunchtime walks and buy stuff, buy a suit, buy things, thinking, and not really fulfilled in my job, because I was working in this very capitalistic corporate treadmill. And I was thinking, this is not fulfilling. And I'm like, okay, I'm earning money, I'm buying stuff, thinking this would kind of somehow make my unhappiness better. But I was kind of throwing stuff into this bottomless hole, buying stuff, new stuff, making me fleetingly happy, but not really happy. And really, and the heart of it, there was unhappiness about, okay, now I'm earning money, I've achieved all these things. What's next? What's the next stage of evolution for me as a human being in this scenario? And I didn't have the answer then. So I thought the thing was, maybe it's the bank. So I tried switching a few banks. I went to a few different banks, and then I got everywhere. It's the same thing. And I just didn't. It's good people. It's not like I have good friends from banks and stuff like that. It's not like the whole scenario was this kind of people were good, but the working culture was not so great. Not so. It's about survival. It was not about thriving. It's about surviving. It's about going out on Thursday evening for drinks. Until 12 o'clock and drinking 6 pints, and that was the kind of culture. I didn't really. I tried to fit in that culture, but I didn't really enjoy that culture. And I knew at that point in time I had to kind of move out. And so I just quit my job without any idea. All I knew was I'm not going to go back to a corporate job. And that's it. I just quit my job.
Oh, wow. And then, was it Oddbox first, or you did something else?
No, I didn't. Okay. So I did this program.
Sorry, before I ask, before you come to that, again, just because I'm also trying to understand. So the visa that you're on, so don't you have to continuously now be employed, or can you also now do a business? You can do whatever you want.
I can do whatever I want.
Okay.
It literally allows me to live and work in the UK. But by the way, by the time I left my job, I had a British passport anyway.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
Kind of all doors are open essentially.
Got it.
So I did this program called Escape the City, and Escape the City is a program. Let's call it a startup incubator program for people who want to build something. It could be a startup, it could be a community, it could be build something, create something, but who are working in the city. So want to escape the city. That was the whole purpose. It's a 3-month program, amazing program, great people, and it's all kind of other lawyers and bankers trying to leave that. Did that program for 3 months. At the end of that program, I kind of really I didn't know what exactly I was going to do, but someone asked me in that program, what would you do if money was not the sole objective? And I kind of remember drawing in this kind of meeting this guy in the pub, drawing this on the back of a napkin to say, it would be fitness, because fitness is something I'm personally passionate about. It would be food, again, similar thing, and it would be having an impact. And this kind of, I drew a triangle. And having an impact was having a positive impact in people's lives through social impact or any kind of positive impact, or an kind of environmental impact. But impact, because I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a legacy behind for this in this world. Leave something behind, not for people to kind of remember my name or anything like that, but I want to leave a positive mark on the world, call it like that. It's a very kind of fleeting idea at that point in time, just didn't pop, right? And so So fitness was the first thing that I was going to the gym regularly. I've been always going to the gym regularly. It was kind of a mental workout in addition to a physical workout, right? So I trained to become a personal trainer.
Really?
Yeah, so qualified to become a personal trainer. I got some clients. I did some boot camps in
No way.
App Common. I did some, I joined an app. I did have some personal clients and stuff like that. I did that for about close to a year.
Wow.
I built this community for online community for the kind of Indians, because I knew that I was thinking that all this kind of the Western science is kind of giving very Western advice. Surely it needs to be tailored by community and by what the food that people love to eat. You don't have a big house with a garden in India. You live in a flat. So space so I call it fitware, was fit wherever you are, which is the concept was all about, how do you, still work around with Indian food, wherever you are in a small flat. How do you do exercises at home and things like that? And I built this online community. I was running Facebook challenges and groups. I had about a few thousand people on that attending those challenges.
Oh, wow.
Did that I didn't monetize it in any way. It was a community, call it like that. It was great fun because it allowed me to kind of post content for the first time on a daily basis. Whether I was traveling, not traveling, on holiday or not, I would post content for these challenges on every single day. And I had to kind of exercise at the same time. So that was my first foray into kind of entrepreneurship, if you will, right? Become a personal trainer. And then I did that for about a year. And then me and my wife went off to Portugal on a holiday when I was doing this. And we came across these street markets in Portugal where you come across ugly vegetables, ugly tomatoes. And we came across this particularly ugly tomato, amazingly tasty. If you've been to Portugal and seen European kind of street markets, very tasty. They won't make it to the British supermarket, right? It was not perfect enough. This comes back to our original question. And I was like, why is that not perfect enough? Which piqued our interest and we started researching about Wonky veg. We came across the French supermarket doing a campaign around Wonky veg and what that meant in terms of food waste at the farm level and how food waste at the farm level has an impact on climate change, right? We grow a lot of food, consume a lot of resources, and then throw it, either it goes to landfill or animal feed or anything like that. And then, and so for me and Emily at that point in time, it was food, and naively we thought fresh produce should be easy as a business, and it is also having an impact on people's lives, but also having an impact on the environment as well. And more so, we thought if we were to take a box of fruit and veg as is, caked in mud from the farm to people's homes, it was a great opportunity for us to change behaviors and shift mindsets. It's easy for me to explain, take a hail-damaged apple and explain to someone, look at that, that's a hail-damaged apple. It would have been thrown away on the farm, and because it's hail damage, and never make it to the supermarket shelf. And that's why you're supporting us. So for us, the storytelling in order to change behaviors and shift mindsets was one of the key drivers. And it's still my kind of, if you were to call me, what's my purpose? My purpose is to shift behaviors and change mindsets and leave a positive impact in people's lives. And that's kind of the thread that's been, driving me all along.
Well, I'm so glad you started this business. So I'm a customer. I absolutely love your brand, and I'm also like a little bit starstruck that you're sitting in this chair now, because I've always, since I moved to the UK, I think it was the first 6 months or so, I came across your brand, and I was like, oh my God, this is so sexy. Like, I mean, the brand itself is so sexy. So congratulations on that. And the whole storytelling aspect is just, there's a huge emotional connect to everything that you've built as well. And I think that somehow for me, and I don't know if you see this with your customers as well, there is like on a subconscious level, there's also a slight shift. I just feel somehow this is more fresh. I don't know if that makes sense. Because I just feel, oh my God, this has come from the farm directly to my house. And of course, it's not supposed to look a certain way, because this is how an actual vegetable needs to look like. So I don't know if you get that feedback, but that is how I felt. I was just like, oh, I'm not going to buy from supermarket because God knows what's in it, and that's why does it look so pretty? It should not look so pretty. So somehow I just felt this is more nutrient packed and this is more organic,
Absolutely, yeah. It's we do get that feedback, and I think it's like going back to that story as well. Like I come from India, where you get delicious mangoes 3 months a year, right? And that 3 months a year, it's seasonal. You've got the best nutrients that nature has to offer, right? To your point around nutrient dense and so on. So supermarkets, when we came to the UK, whilst it's really nice to have blueberries in winter, the thing is the fact that it comes from Chile and it tastes a bit like nothing. It's like it's great to have the variety and the availability 365 days a year, but maybe sometimes you miss the it's probably made its way, I don't know how many days on a ship or air freighted all the way from South America, lost a bit of taste. It doesn't have the same connection as a farm. And with Oddbox, to your earlier point, we're trying to we prioritize British produce. We go abroad as well now, because fruits, as a country, we're just not self-sufficient. We just don't grow as many fruits. So we have to grow further afield. But for vegetables, we do prioritize that. So there is freshness in that sense. But we're also trying to in a way, our responsibility is we are like a little grower's mouthpiece, it's our responsibility, if you will, to tease and tell the story in a nice way about what the growers are going through as well. It's a tough job. I've done the initial take a zip van, go to a grower, speak to a grower, and come back collecting produce myself, and I've seen the harvesting and the hard work that it takes picking produce. It's manual labor. It's hard work. You do it in winter. You do it in cold weather. You do it when it's raining. You don't just stop. And if you remove all that and you just translate it, bring it back down to, let me buy this piece of apple. Let me buy the cheapest piece of apple because that's what I care about. I'm going to go to Aldi or Lidl to buy the cheapest piece of apple, fully forgetting where that comes from, what work goes behind the scenes, etc., etc. And by cheapest piece of apple, perhaps maybe comes from Poland because it's cheaper from Poland than the UK. Then it's a very financial metric or financial number that you're looking at lens. So with Oddbox, what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of take away all that. Obviously, it's a very complicated message, right? I mean, you've got to simplify things. Otherwise, people just go, you've got 3 seconds to capture people's attention. We're trying to kind of bring all that grower stories. What is a grower going through? Weather, climate change, what impact does it have on growing conditions? What is things like Brexit, what impact does it have on labor availability for a grower? What happens when there's tailbacks in Dover? And, what does that mean for food availability and security? And growers are people, and people buy from people, right? So how do we bring those stories to life from other people has been the kind of the driving ethos for Oddbox, without trying to kind of think, is this going to sell more boxes, or is it going to make us a big brand? We're not brand people, we're finance people, which is why, we're very, but we want to be authentic in terms of that's what we would want to communicate to other people, the stories behind the scenes. And maybe Oddbox has just become this company that has become maybe a personification, I suppose, of who we are. Maybe me, Emily, and a few initial employees like Gavin, who joined the business at the start. Yeah.
It's interesting you say you're not brand people, you're finance people, but I think you've created an amazing brand. Also, I would have never thought that an immigrant would be behind this brand. And maybe that was my own unconscious bias, because I just felt this is such a British brand. And I just thought, I would have never thought. So, I'm thinking from this lens, how are you thinking when you're creating a brand? A brand that you obviously want it to be a household name. Is there anything going on in your mind, or by then you are somehow desensitized and you're just operating from it doesn't matter, immigrant, no immigrant, I need to just...
Yeah. I think if you take the first 3 years of the business, we had no plans of raising money, becoming UK-wide, X million revenue, raising, and all of that was never the case, never the thought process. It was all about surviving the day, surviving the week, and just building step by step, in a financially sustainable way. and also doing things in the right way as well. It's not just financially sustainable, but making the what we call resourceful, commonsensical choices. So, for instance, um, we were generating surplus ourselves, and we had two choices. We could either pay PIFA to collect food waste from us, or we could work with charities like City Harvest to collect that and redistribute it to soup kitchens. So there's two ways of looking at that same thing that I've just told you. You can look at it and go, oh, I want to be sustainable, and therefore I'm going to work with charities. That's one way of looking at it. We didn't look at it that way. We just said, we want to save a bit of money here. What's the commonsensical way of addressing it, but doing it in the right way, which is not like just throwing it in the bin, right? It's not like just chucking it in the bin. So so I think that's where when you talk about brand and sustainability for us means being resourceful, and resourceful means making the most commonsensical use of resources that we have, which are finite, right? So and the other thing that we do is overnight deliveries. We do overnight deliveries. That came not because we want to be sustainable and do overnight deliveries to reduce air pollution. That came because Emily was working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and the only time she could come and help pack boxes was at 6 p.m. on a Friday night, and therefore we had to do overnight deliveries. And so all of these things that got embedded into the brand, and people would say, "How the Oddbox is sustainable? They do overnight deliveries. They partner with." That these things came about because of common sense decisions, being resourceful, if you were to call it, but also doing things in the right way as well. We went kind of London living wage even when we couldn't kind of afford it at that point in time, with a sense of we could have gone beyond fruit and veg quite early into a lot of other categories, but we carefully protected it, the brand, and said, okay, we're going to stick to food waste. We're going to stick to fruit and veg. That's protecting the brand. And I think all education as founders of brand being just a logo and a bunch of colors just slapped in, a green here, a yellow there, that's a brand. To be fair, that was a brand. For me and Emily, brand was a logo and a couple of colors. So our first logo, we used to be called Tasty Misfits, by the way. And firstly, not Oddbox. Our first logo was 30 pounds on Fiverr, cheapest Fiverr graphic designer we could get, because financially, remember, we're financially sustainable. And, just stick that as a sticker to close the boxes, and a color. Green works, right? Surely. Green is fresh, green works. That was it. That was the brand. And we didn't have this major thing about we should build this amazing brand. So I think the brand has been built from the grassroots based on being authentic, maybe based on, I think, telling the growth story is the right thing to do. Teasing out, maybe putting plastic in the boxes, but being honest about why you put plastic in the boxes is the right thing to do. Not just saying, I'm going plastic free, we're going to be plastic free. So being authentic and being brave enough to say why you are who you are is maybe why the brand is the brand right now. It is not by design, that's for sure.
So, I mean, you're somehow, I would just think your business is slightly complex because you're also, okay, so you're doing that, you're going to the farmers, so you're finding them, your suppliers. Normally, you would then go to a distributor, which is your supermarkets or whatever, but now you've also become the distributor.
Right.
You're also a D2C, so you're going direct to the consumer. On top of that, you need to grab the consumer's attention as well. So there's the marketing aspect. So there's a lot of complexities.
Right.
You are a finance person. How did that team build? I mean, like who's managing what and how did that all come about? Because there are too many moving parts.
Yeah. So again, like I said at the start, when you start on a journey with authenticity and this vision, you meet great people on the way, right? And which is so Gavin, our first hire, was like and he still is in the business. He heads up the sourcing side, and he came from a fruit industry, so he was the only guy who knew about the industry. We didn't know anything about the industry, but we just went out to say we want to hire an intern. That's what operations intern is what we didn't go and ask. But Gavin would be the operations person. He would be he was great at photography as well. So he would choose, shoot our first. I mean, he's probably a far more brand person than me and Emily ever were. And he would be very pedantic about shooting amazing pictures, posting them on Instagram. We had googly eyes and stuff like that. But we met good people along the way who then maybe, again, I met our first driver in the early days. I met him yesterday for some drinks, but a Romanian guy. He came to this country with nothing, and he was doing 300 parcels for DX, which is one of the courier companies, on a day. And he wanted to earn some extra money because he was starting from scratch. And he came to us. He delivered 29 parcels, which we were delivering 1 day a week. He was delivering 300 parcels in a day. He was delivering 29 parcels for us, covering all of South London. And I asked him, this was nothing. We were offering you 1/10 of what your day job was offering you. Why did you? He said he saw something in us.
Wow.
And I don't know what that is. So the point I'm trying to make is that when you are, I suppose, you're not trying to be someone else. You are who you are. You're authentic, and you have a vision, and you want to solve a problem. You meet some amazing people along the way. Life sends you amazing people along the way.
Yeah.
Put it that way, right?
I mean, it's so true. When you do something with the right intent, you do attract the right people and the right circumstances.
Yeah. And that's just people call it serendipity, luck, etc. But as you know, you create luck and you create the right circumstances for luck. But you just go along that journey, and you just need to stop. You just need to kind of be aware enough to stop and recognize the signs along the way, and not just be at this kind of blinkers on 100 miles an hour, where riding roughshod over people.
Yeah.
You're just you're so obsessed about the outcome that you've forgotten the journey and why you started in the first place. I mean, that can become a watch out. But as long as you're constantly thinking, right, it's not like you don't have to enjoy the journey, right? It's painful. The journey is extremely painful. Especially if you're in operational business, it is extremely painful to get a call at 5:30 in the morning saying, "Oh, I'm standing here in Brixton. The van's wheels have come off.
Oh my God.
And I've got all this produce. Oh, by the way, we need to pack that in a couple of hours' time. And you've got to run at 5:30 in the morning, and you just woken up and you're like, So it is you don't enjoy all these things. I just want to be completely honest with everybody, right? You go at it with a lot of pain and grit, and you go, this is so painful. Why did I start this business? But you just do it. You just do it. You just do it. And maybe that's the entrepreneur mindset, where you just do it. You just turn up anyway. It's like going to the gym, come rain or shine. Just do it. And you meet amazing people along the way, to your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, you spoke about focus just before this as well, because you said, okay, you could have gone in different miles, but then you stuck to fruits and vegetables. Even in that, even if you stuck to fruits and vegetables, why didn't you go to that next layer of, because there's a lot of meal prep type of businesses as well.
Yeah.
Was that ever on the cards?
We thought about various ideas along the way. I think for us, it was, we saw a lot of opportunity with fruit and veg. And we saw, maybe there was this, we did so the way we grew the business was geographic expansion. Started in South London and slowly grew now to cover a lot of the UK now. And so that was the growth. That was where the growth was coming from anyway. And we didn't want to overcomplicate the business because we knew that the more layers you add in terms of operation, in terms of offering to customers, the more operational complexity you add to the back end. And one thing was very clear in our minds was that operational execution had to be top notch. There was no, in the early days, I would get extremely upset personally if there was a negative Trustpilot review. And there was, again, obsessed about customer satisfaction. And people say brand, it's just this amazing. But the brand, the early days, was about executing amazingly well. Because we knew that if whatever you say, like you might say the best stories in the world, but if you don't, the promise that you make to a customer, that is good quality produce delivered to your door on time for this price, you don't meet that promise, you break that trust. You might say whatever you want to say on your website and in your Instagram socials, but that trust broken is that trust broken, that they're not going to come back. And so for us, that operational execution was at the same time key to kind of, I forgot your original question, but yeah, kind of managing that at the same time was super important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I mean, my question really, why don't you switch to like, I mean, meal prep and, all those other things. So
Right.
yeah, focusing and getting that right was obviously important for you.
Correct, absolutely right. And still today, because to a certain degree, I would argue as you scale, it does make you a bit slow.
Yeah.
Because you're so focused on execution that sometimes like progress over perfection, right?
Correct.
Progress over perfection. And I think I need to, I think we are to a certain level guilty. Me and Emily are guilty of that culture where we've brought perfection so much into the business that maybe we've become a bit slow because of that perfection. Everybody's gone execution. Whereas sometimes we execute, the team is such an amazing team. They execute it so well. But sometimes you've also got to allow enough time to be flexible and experiment and do several things and do it in a bad way. It's okay to be okay, it's okay to be average. In order, your experiments can be average, your execution has to be perfect. That's the thing that we struggled with as a culture. But that's a big learning as well for us to be balance execution with experimentation. Otherwise, you can be so good at execution, but too perfect. And if you don't evolve, you die. It's just the nature
of
you can't go against nature.
Correct.
Things, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I mean, you started, you bootstrapped. Since then, you've raised a few rounds as well.
Yeah.
How in terms of your market share, UK, like where you guys are at this point in time?
Yeah. I wouldn't know the exact stats about market share. I suppose we've got 50,000 customers that buy a box weekly or fortnightly. In terms, we work about 150 growers across the country and elsewhere beyond the UK as well. The plan is actually to move as we are speaking. The team is working on a plan to move beyond fresh produce into this market, as we call it, which is all going to be about refills. So pantry items like rice, pasta in paper bags, in a refill kind of you just add that to your container, remove plastic essentially we're going beyond food waste into plastic waste as well, but also offering perhaps other brands that make up good brands like B Corps or sustainable brands that make up your meals. And that could be canned tomatoes, canned chickpeas and things like that. So we're offering almost like a deconstructed recipe box in a way to say, here's some fruit and veg, but here's also some chickpeas. Here's also some tomatoes. Here's also some rice to make up a meal and slowly build up on a meal solution at some point in the future, where we won't never want to become a recipe box because there's just too much competition. But and our customers are scratch cooks. They don't like to be told exactly. The time poor for sure. A lot of them are time poor, but they also want the flexibility of creating something.
Got it.
In the kitchen. Not just like, just follow a recipe, step 1, step 2, step 3. So how do you cater to that segment of the customer?
That's also interesting. I mean, because that's also a separate niche then.
Correct.
From that perspective. And again, I'm guessing this is also one of those, hopefully, once you guys get into it, it's also maybe by design, but also not by design.
Correct. Yeah.
Because you're looking at, the sustainability aspect.
Yeah.
And then, let's just club everything together.
Correct.
So, 50,000 users, over 50,000 users, you started from bootstrapping, then you've raised a couple of rounds. You guys are obviously very successful at this point in time. You are a household name in the UK, but then you just mentioned you have stepped down.
Yes.
When everything is going right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What happened there? So I think just a step back, we saw a huge period of growth during COVID and the lockdown.
Right. For obvious reasons.
We were already growing at triple-digit growth till then, but obviously it's easy to grow triple-digit when you're small. Triple-digit can seem like, triple-digit growth, actually, like your base is pretty small. But anyway, we were growing pretty fast. But COVID just went ballistic, right? Lockdown just went ballistic. A lot of brands unfortunately suffered. We were on the beneficiary on the other side. With that growth came investors. Investors are knocking on our door, and D2C in general was at the peak of the kind of valuation. At this point in time, money was still cheap. Interest rates were still low. Investors had a lot of dry powder, as they call it. And one such investor invested a lot of money. Series B is when we raised the money. So it took a lot of money at that point in time. and at a very high 9-figure valuation, right? It's amazing. Have champagne moment. Great. Let's just, go to the pub and celebrate. What we, I suppose, hadn't really, really realized is that when you take investment from institutional investors and you start setting up a board, you become a salaried person in your own business. And this is this is not landed, right? Mind you, the context is that I started this business with my wife. This is like a family business, if you call it, right? Businesses 50 years ago were family businesses. You run that for life. You don't have investors pouring in lots of money as it's happening now. So for me, maybe I was a bit old school. I was thinking, it's a family business. And you got investors, okay, sit on the board, fine, it's great. We still run the business. But anyway, long story short, investors came on board. Then markets started shifting dramatically, right? The war in the Ukraine, cost of living crisis, interest rates are going up. So money is falling down. And at the same time, so people are buying less. So you see customers, demand is starting to fall. Raw material costs are going up. Demand is starting to fall. Raw material costs are going up. What happens? Your cash starts dwindling. Your cash reserves start dwindling. And in fact, funnily enough, we took out of all the money that we took in Series B, we took money off the table, and a lot of investors actually took money off the table. We should have put money into the business then, but didn't know that then. It was a bit naive there. Even though finance people, you do these mistakes along the way. So the business would have benefited from a lot of that money, but we took a lot of that money out as we had crowdfunding investors and investors and so on. And then investors the new investors are getting pissed, number one. The cash was falling, so the business was getting into a precarious position where you could see there's a 1-year runway here. Raising in the past would have just raised money. We were raising when going to the market, nobody was interested. Everybody was off in the investment. This is the period when post-COVID. Basically, the amazing COVID, the new world didn't last, right? Maybe the remote working lasted, but everything else, people went back to their old habits.
Correct.
It's just years of habits will not be replaced by 2 years of new habits. Anyway, we should have known that then. Hindsight is great. I was looking after, so I had carved out my role after the lockdown. So Emily was the CEO, and I carved out my role to become a chief customer officer, and I was managing product technology and customer happiness as a customer experience kind of a function. For some reason or the other, the technology side, there were a lot of setbacks. So we had to write off a 200,000 pound project because our strategy had changed, and this thing that we're building, the ERP we're building, was not fit for purpose. All that blame, investors were looking for generally someone that landed on my shoulders, and they were questioning my role. And I had this conversation with my then chair. So we had to let people go as well. So there's a couple of things are happening. We had to let people go, which was a very tough thing for me to kind of let people go, because we'd built this business as a husband and wife team. These people were like, literally, people wouldn't say family, but even very close people. And letting people go is not easy. Plus investors were screaming for what is my role in the business, etc., etc. And just a year ago, 2020, we had just adopted our 6-year-old daughter. My priorities had already started to shift in a way that I want to spend more time with this kind of young person in our family. And so the young person in the family, adoption is a new thing. Letting people go, business not doing well, investors all this kind of was leading to what I didn't know then, a burnout situation. And a burnout situation of people who have gone through this would mean disengaging with your reality, right? I was starting to disengage with Oddbox. I was not enjoying Oddbox. I would dread Oddbox on a Sunday, going into work, having meetings with the team on a Sunday evening, and fear. I was leading with fear. I was leading with risk. When you run a business, you can either look at things with a lens of risk or a lens of opportunity. And you've got to balance both. You can't just go one or the other. But if you go more on one side, i.e. risk, then that becomes a problem. So I was looking at everything with a risk lens on, because I didn't want to lose things, right, at that point in time. I want to lose Oddbox. I think I knew that was not the right thing internally. So anyway, long story short, about a year ago, I had a conversation with my wife, who was very kind of magnanimous to say, right, if you're not happy, you're not happy.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I don't think I'm not the person for what Oddbox needs for the next 3 to 5 years. And either I had to change myself, which I've tried. So I tried switching my role down from people management to I was looking after bringing consumer packaged goods to life. So we've got some Oddbox branded cooking paste now live on Ocado, and we're also selling that. So I was in charge of bringing that, creating that product and bringing that to life. But even after doing that for 2 years, I just went, I don't think this is I'm not energized. I just don't feel like I'm in the right place. So I'm now a non-exec director. I still attend board meetings. I still get involved in the strategy whenever Emily needs my help. But I'm also kind of moving on to advising early stage startups between post-seed and Series A, early stage founders, and helping them navigate this business side of scaling and fundraising and all that practical side, but also on the flip side, helping them navigate the identity crisis of my identity is my startup's identity. How do I balance my mental health versus progress, and how do I equip myself to be resilient to run this marathon, which is running a business? So helping founders kind of navigate scaling. I call it scaling their business and scaling themselves. Yeah.
I want to actually congratulate you, because it's that identity that you spoke about. Like, I know my identity is Plum. Like, I mean, shit, if there's no Plum, like, who am I? Like, I think I've reached that stage already. So I think someone so there's identity, but there's also maybe ego. You started the company with your wife. This is your baby.
Yeah.
And now you're stepping down and you're stepping down. So I think from a reflective perspective, I think that is really important for others to also to know how important, what your priorities are, and having that reflective thought. And you've put yourself first from a mental health aspect. I think that is commendable, because it's very difficult for people, even if you burn out, it's very difficult to people to actually have that conversation with themselves first and take that step back. Like, I'm just thinking, wow, you started the company and now you're not even heading that customer happiness department. Now you've gone even lower. Like, I mean, ego kicks in, and it's like, oh shit, like, no, I'm not gonna go lower. So I mean, how did that happen? And I'm guessing you had a great support from your wife, who's also the CEO of the company. I think that helped.
That helped for sure. I think look, I've gone through had the help of coaches and therapists as well. Therapists to kind of look into my past and understand the beliefs and all of that. But also different coaches along the journey to help me kind of talk this through and help me navigate that journey for sure. So I would highly recommend a coach to anyone kind of listening in, to kind of, it's easy to kind of go into your own kind of negative spiral, and either you come out of it really well, or you could just kind of go deeper and deeper inside into this hole. And I think speaking to someone who can reframe some of the thoughts in your head and how you are looking at your perspective, reframing your perspective is quite important, I feel. I think a coach, lots of reading different books, and with a learner mind again, right? That there was kind of the point I made earlier was, every now and then I have this kind of, there is a better life. The life that I'm reading now, the history, no matter, that was the thing that I thought was really good, and that gives me a lot of respect and credibility in the world, etc., etc. But there's a better life for me as a person, as a human, and that drives me to the next stage. So that's my kind of view.
I'm glad you spoke about the external help, that you've also got therapists, coaches, but definitely you've done a lot of work on yourself also. I think it's really important for us to, because you said, as you rightly said, when you're in that space, in that headspace, you can either come out of it thriving or have a downward spiral. And the problem is, when you don't have that support system, when you don't really know where and how to navigate, for the most part, you go into a downward spiral. It's very difficult to come out of that situation because you just feel like, oh my God, I'm in this hole, and you just keep digging yourself even further deeper.
Yeah.
So, but I also truly believe, Deepak, that no therapist or coach in the world can save you. You need to save you.
Absolutely.
So working on yourself is super important. I think acknowledging that there's a problem, number one.
Yeah.
And then getting that external support, but then constantly, working on yourself. You were a PT, so you know that.
Yeah.
You could be the best PT in the world.
Correct.
But if I just want to eat shit every single day and not do the work, nothing's going to change.
Change. Absolutely. There's again self-awareness, reflection, and building in time as well, right? I think it's easy to say. I think like any entrepreneur or person will tell you, I mean, as long as you take action and you put a plan around it, you'll achieve.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's how do you then build a framework and a time around these things in your very busy life as running a business. That's the key. I think I didn't do enough of that because you're so busy executing, you're constantly in execution mode. And sometimes, not sometimes, I think it's important to build time. But that's a Sunday evening reflection. If that's a journal practice during the daily practice, or any of those frameworks that you can bring into your life that allows you to stop and reflect, not just on the problem for the business to solve, but on you as a person and what is it that you want out of it? What is your identity? And are you the founder of this business, or are you much bigger than that? And founder is just one part of it.
I love that reframing, by the way, because you would think if I'm the founder, that is it.
Yeah.
I've achieved the biggest and the highest thing that I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Are you the founder, or are you bigger than that? I love that.
Yeah.
So you've obviously told us what is coming for Oddbox.
Yeah.
Are you going to start another venture? Is that also on the horizon?
So I've promised my wife nothing for the next 12 months. So
Okay.
I'm really
Okay.
And the reason she says that is because I get just obsessed and everything else falls with this. All right, okay. You know me more than myself, so I'm gonna focus on being an entrepreneur now, which is building my advisory business, and I'm also training to be a coach as well now. So I really love the coaching habit, I suppose, the coaching skill. So I'm training to be a coach, and I'm also an advisor. So I'm going to build that, but more as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur, not as a startup founder.
Deepak, you've done a lot of self-reflection. So now reflection time.
All right.
Going back to the Deepak who was in Bangalore just before moving to the UK, everything that you've achieved so far.
Yeah.
Did you think you would come to the UK and do what you've done? Was this on the cards for that person? And yes or no, but then what would you tell that person today?
No is the honest answer. Absolutely no vision of that. I don't even know when people say, what's your 5 years? I've got no idea what 5 years would bring. What would I tell the person? I think I would tell the person, live life more intentionally. Just don't go with the flow. Which goes back to go and learn, be a student of life. There's so much to learn, and you can't learn everything, right? Again, it's a pragmatic things I learn, but I think learn about, be more curious, be a learner is what I would say tell that person. Yeah.
I love that, Deepak. Well, thank you so much, Deepak, for coming on the pod.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for starting Oddbox, by the way. I absolutely love the brand. In fact, I'm going to double check, on the subscription and perhaps up the subscription, because I'm just loving the whole mission behind, and now seeing the man behind the actual mission. I think it's just fantastic. You've done a great deal of thing, not only for yourself, for your family, for the team around it, but really, I mean, also trying to shift the mindset of people. I think that is fundamentally important. So thank you for doing that. And hopefully, all the best to Oddbox and your wife and the existing team, and all the best to you for your future. I can't wait what you do in the next 12 months. Hopefully we'll have another pod, and then you can tell us all about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. My pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity as well to speak.
Thank you, Deepak.